A recent poll by the Associated Press shows that even as a wide majority still believe it's happening, Americans are less concerned with how it might alter them personally.
Right, probably because they're not seeing the impacts at the front door.
I guess,
maybe.
But we are seeing the impacts at the front door, right? That includes how their personal choices play a role in affecting the climate. Overall, just 35% of adults in the U.S. say they are extremely or very concerned about the impact of climate change on them personally. That's actually down from 44% back in August of 2019.
So it's kind of split there, 32, 33, 35. Maybe it's kind of the idea that, we'll adapt.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those think like, well, we're going to adapt like we do everything else. I don't know what what their reason is behind that. But it was an interesting stat either way.
So, of course, we're all going into the holidays, and climate's going to come up in some people's homes. We know this, right? So we're thinking of you, and it gets very uncomfortable, the conversations with your friends or family. Jordan's laughing. I feel like he's had this conversation. Sometimes it can actually get heated when we're talking about the warming climate.
Yeah, you just got to let it cool and breathe. But thankfully, we're going to talk about this in a nice, easy way. We have a special guest joining us today to share some insight on how to get your potentially earth-saving message across the table.
Yes.
We want to bring in Dr. Caleb Dresser. He's a fellow with Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Thank you so much for being with us. So before we begin the conversation, how do we set the stage? I think we were talking in our meeting, there was a study from Harvard saying you got to get rid of all the knives.
That's the first thing you do, like, come on.
Kitchen knives from the table.
I would say forks too, maybe, for that matter.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and happy Thanksgiving. I mean, I think when we speak to climate change, especially in these conversations with family members, that let's be real, people are coming from different places. We need to think about where it is they're coming from, and let's identify what we've got in common. We're coming together as family around Thanksgiving. Let's remember that Uncle Mike or Aunt Susie or whoever it is that might have a different opinion from us, well, they have a reason they have that opinion, and we need to meet them halfway and understand where they're coming from.
All right, so how would you say, yes, it'd be nice if we could all just meet in the middle and listen and hear someone else's perspective and respect it. That's not always the case though. What would you say are some easy ways to ease into the conversation?
Yeah, I think, the climate science is really powerful at this point, but it's also been out there for a long time. And so if they're not convinced by the climate science by now, I don't know that bringing up another scientific study is really going to help advance the conversation.
Should you bring receipts to the table, though? I mean, should you bring the receipts?
Yeah, what I do instead is I speak to the impacts I'm seeing. I'm an emergency physician, so I've been treating patients with heat stroke late into the fall. I've been seeing patients displaced by hurricanes. And so I speak to some of that personal experience. And I think it's really important that we ground this conversation in what this means for us. Maybe you have a small child and you're looking ahead to your child's future. What does this change in climate mean for them? And try to anchor this in reality that makes sense to the person you're talking to.
Yeah, just bring up, how about them glaciers? Well, they shouldn't be here anyway, so we're getting rid of, no, I'm just teasing. I don't know how the conversation's going to go, but if it comes up, and it likely will come up, how do we get it to where we can get to that point of agreeing on something, unifying us? You listen to the other side, hopefully the other side listens to you. Is there a way to kind of get the conversation to mold to where we come to an agreement at least?
Yeah, I think look for what they care about. Maybe what they care about is really economic opportunities, and maybe they're really concerned that dealing with climate change is going to hurt the economy. Well, that's a great opportunity to talk about job opportunities in renewable energy. That's a great opportunity to talk about some of the economic advantages we might see from steps we can take to deal with climate change. There's a whole lot of new money coming down from the federal government to help with this, and new industries are going to get built out. So trying to spin this toward positive futures that they would like to inhabit, I think, is a really good first step.
I know you're an ER physician, but also I would think you're a little bit of a psychologist too in this job with helping people and helping them cope with something they've just experienced, right? So maybe you can help us with how to cope with negative feedback that we're getting at the table.
Yeah, I try to not make this a personal confrontation. I think whether you're really active on climate change or whether you're really opposed to taking action on it, this is a really emotional issue. And so finding shared values and thinking about things we can do together that will help, I think that's the way forward. And for some people, this Thanksgiving might be the first conversation of an ongoing conversation you're going to have with your cousin or your uncle for years to come. And maybe where they're ready to engage right now might be something like flood protection. I think we can all agree we want to be safe from floods. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation about climate science. It can be a conversation about investing in keeping our communities safe. And I think we might all agree on that. And then more conversations can happen in the future.
And maybe if you're one who wants to have that conversation, limit the alcohol use. Just saying, because Uncle Joe can get a little crazy sometimes when he gets on the sauce. Dr. Caleb
As a doctor,
Dresser,
I must certainly agree with that.
There you go. I'm sure you do.
thank you so much, Dr. Caleb Dresser, fellow with the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health.
Well,
Good combo.
first of all, you shouldn't take things personally in life, and I know that's very hard for a lot of us.
How dare you say this?
But what I always say to everyone is like, can we all agree just not to be wasteful?
That's a good thing we can all agree.
Everyone can agree on not being wasteful.
And try not to pollute too much.
Again,
right?
it all goes
That's
back to being
great.
wasteful. A lot of it goes back to being wasteful.